Hello. I guess I'll call this a brief introduction to Asciidoc because I'm going to show a little bit of Asciidoc, the things that I kind of like about it, and compare it a little bit to Markdown. So those of you who are familiar with Markdown, this is kind of for you if you're interested to see what Asciidoc can do. So this is not Asciidoc, this is Markdown. I just want to show a couple of topics. So, you got your heading, paragraph, code block, table, and then all your indentation. And if you notice in Markdown, it's got all this nice white space everywhere. Asciidoc looks like this, which isn't too much different, except indentation is not really a thing. I kind of liken Markdown to like Python, where indentation matters, and it's kind of a nice clean language, and Asciidoc is kind of like Perl, where every little character means something. So that's not necessarily a compliment because most people don't like Perl, even though I love it. But once you get used to what each of these little characters mean, it's not so bad. And I kind of like the fact that there's a lot of flavors of Markdown, and you never really know whether the indentation is going to work or not. You always have to have the preview view. Same with Asciidoc. You need to have the preview view open, which I'm going to show in a second. But it does look nice just reading it, but authoring it, once you get a hang of it, this is kind of like Emacs org mode, if you're familiar with that, in the way that you handle your lists and indentation. And yeah, it's pretty clear. For example, if you have, like, all of these are underneath this first one because they're indented at the same level, which is the case in most Markdown flavors. Sometimes you have to indent it just a little bit further. But in Asciidoc, when you want to put a bunch of stuff underneath, you have this concatenation sign. So you're pretty much concatenating each block with the other one. And then this is a full table. That's the header. This is the rest. And then when you have a space, then you go on to the next list item. So this is an indented list item because there's a space, but then this is concatenated. This ordered list belongs to this list item and things like that. This paragraph belongs to this fourth level indented list item, which, you got to keep track of the levels you're in, but, in Markdown, you kind of can just see what level you're in. So that kind of needs a little getting used to. But yeah, I do like it. I'm starting to like it more, and one of the big reasons I like it is it's more functional. So with Markdown, it does look clear, and it is like Python in that it's a clean language. But then when you want to start adding all the features that Asciidoc has, which I'm going to show you some of the cool features. That's what this really is, kind of a highlight of the features that you get with Asciidoc. You start to see some more things. Like here's Python, here's Perl with all of its strange little symbols. I was going to just show that as an example. But then you got a Markdown like Cramdown, which allows you to insert attributes into your Markdown and classes. And here's a different way of doing code blocks. And then you can do definition lists, which a lot of flavors of Markdown don't allow you to do. So you got this colon, and then it allows you to do pretty blocky tables. You don't have to do it this way, but you can have, I think in Cramdown you can have blocks in your tables, although you can't span rows. And so, yeah, then you can include math if you have LaTeX plugin installed. And so once you start adding all this stuff, you get all those special characters into your Markdown anyway. So, if you're just doing the basic paragraph after paragraph, Asciidoc is pretty easy to do as well. It actually shines because the syntax is similar, and you'll see where there's a block statement and you have a description of the block in brackets before the block. That's kind of common throughout. And then when you have like includes or links or cross references, you'll see this pattern where you have the control word, the file that you're doing, and then some options in a square bracket. So at least it follows a pretty consistent format. So first of all, let's look at this document in preview here on the side. Took a little while because I'm using a different preview. The previews that you can use, there's a JavaScript Asciidoctor plugin, I guess, to, this is VS Code. So you can use either the JavaScript Asciidoctor processor or the Ruby one. And I chose to use the Ruby one because I'm going to show some features that only the Ruby one has, at least in my environment. So it takes a little while to render it sometimes. But anyway, this is a head one, right? So I'm not going to describe all of this. This is a code block you can see, and it's got the line number thing, which is cool. These features come with the Asciidoctor. And let me say a little bit about that. There's one Asciidoctor, which is pretty much the going standard right now for Asciidoc. So there is one Asciidoc language. Because everyone who uses Asciidoc uses Asciidoctor or Antora, which is based on Asciidoctor. Then there's there's Asciidoc J, I think, which might be a little bit different, but they are working on a standard. So you're not going to find a lot of flavors of Asciidoc like you do Markdown. So pretty much you write it one place, you're going to see it everywhere else. I think. I don't know. Everywhere else to me is Asciidoctor. So, so take that for what it's worth. As far as I know, there's only one processor that's worthwhile. It's got a JavaScript version and a Ruby version, and they vary just a little bit, but not on the syntax, on the features that they actually can do. So anyway, enough of that. So yeah, Asciidoctor gives you these cool line numbers if you add that there. I'm using the Rouge source highlighter, but you can use many others, Highlight.js. And Asciidoctor comes with quite a few features. It pulls in, like this format right here, this beautiful style that it presents. This comes with Asciidoctor, and the style is embedded in your document. You can, of course, change that if you want to, but right out of the box, it comes with a lot of cool features. For those who are writing documentation, which this is the kind of language Asciidoc is for writing documentation. Markdown has a lot of different use cases where it's plugged into, front-end applications and things like that. Asciidoc is primarily for documentation, and it was written as a shorthand language for the XML docbook publishing language. So if you're familiar with DocBook, it's an XML language made for publishing books. So all the features that it has are very book oriented, so it's definitely for documentation. So yeah, you see these includes up here. I'll talk about those in a second, but yeah, so first of all, instead of going through this document, let me say that the cool thing that I like is this is a head one, right? Well, let me go to this index document, and so we got hello world there, we got our top paragraph. Includes is something that's really cool. I can include one document in another. So here's that topic right here, my topic, and notice it's a head 2 because I changed the offset to a head 2. Actually a head 3 because it's under include. If I wanted to make it a head 2 there, it's a head 2. But yeah, so I can indent it as needed, and then whatever the heading levels in that document are, they offset, which is really great. So it can be either a standalone topic if you serve it that way, and that's why I have these includes up here, or you can include it in another document right here. So more on includes. Some special things about Asciidoc are something called attributes. So let me go into the includes and let's look at the standard attributes. So don't pay attention to this over here. This is an Asciidoc document, that's why I tried to render it. But if you put this icons there, it uses a font awesome font package for things like admonitions, which I'll show you in a second. So I got ASCII math enabled, link attributes are set to true. Here I told you the source highlighter is used as rouge. And I'm using a BibTeX plugin for a bibliography. So those are kind of the top level, I guess, metadata that you would see in plugins that you would see in some flavors of Markdown that add all that kind of stuff. But another thing you can include are kind of like you do in Markdown, where you have your links, your URLs set with a link that you can reference. You can do that here. And I call this conrefs, kind of hearkening to DITA, but content references, where you can have product names and other things that you reference throughout your doc, variables pretty much. So like Asciidoc and Asciidoctor, if I go back to my index and I went to refer to Asciidoctor, I can just say Adoc or Asciidoc, and it puts it in right there. So you can reuse those variables throughout your document as long as you have them at the top. So I include them at the top, or they can be right underneath the first level heading. So those were the files that I had, the conrefs, the links, and the standard attributes. And then here's the format of a link. So there's a link. Do I have another link somewhere? I don't. So let me do another link. So that links, as you can see, is it's trying to draw it links to the user manual. I can say C user manual for the text to actually be put in there. Yeah, this really is slow. Probably because I'm recording at the same time. It wasn't as slow before. So that's pretty cool, right? All right, so there's the include. So you can get some fancy includes too. Like, suppose you have a sample program like this. This is a real Python script. And right now I'm including lines 5 and 6 from this program. So if I look over here on the index, you can see the range is lines 5 and 6. And that is, let me not include this anymore because I don't really care about what's in there. Yeah, so here we are. That's line 5 and 6, my func with the print. That's what it is over here, 5 and 6. But of course, the program's going to change as the developer writes more code. So you have to put, it would be better, let me comment this out, to link to something that actually has a tag. So here's that other function, and I'm referencing a tag inside of there. And so now I've tagged that function, the begin tag and then the end tag. So anything between that is what's being referenced. So that's being included here. That's pretty cool, right? Here's a table. So got the optional header up there, and it automatically, calculates which table it is in the page. And it includes a CSV file. That's what this little comma means, the shorthand for that. I could have specified CSV in the options here, but the comma is the nice way to do it. So I got this CSV file here. Oops, I'm over there. And the first line is my header, so that's why I said options header to make that a header. And then I got the values in there, right? So here's that table from a CSV file. And then pass through HTML. This is how you do it. The only reason I'm doing that is to show you that you can do pass through HTML, but you can do that in Markdown too. But that's for this class right here. So notice it's red and it's got that kind of a yellowy background. So that's what this is right there. And I could add something to the style in my style, or I could add a different class here. There's already an Asciidoc class called big, which makes the text a little bit bigger. So you can do that. So I added 2 classes there. You can add a space. It doesn't matter if there's a space or not. Yeah, here's an example of that link that I was showing, and it accepts a couple of blanks. So if I have an external link, I want to go to a blank page in external. The one thing I don't like about this is you're not using the actual HTML attributes. It's using a different set of Asciidoc specific attributes that are translated to the HTML attributes. That could be a good thing when you're outputting to both HTML and PDF and ebook. There might be, probably with ebook, there might be a different way to specify it. I don't know. I don't know the reasoning, but there's, you know, you can pass classes and IDs, like if you know, there were some ID, I've given that span there. Oh, by the way, this hash is the beginning and this hash is the end of the span that's being shown there. But, you know, you can do classes and IDs, but you can't do other attributes other than the ones that they give you, like role and things like that. All right, yeah, so then they have highlighting here. This is using the, I think it's an HTML5 tag, mark. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, so that's some of the cool stuff. This is where Asciidoc, the characters, you need to know what the characters mean. So blocks. I showed you the comment already, and here's an inline comment. You just put a couple of hashes in there like Java. It's got admonitions built in. This is really cool. So this is a note block for information messages. You have warning. Yep. And then you have caution. And and then what's the other one? Oh, a tip. Yeah, tip. Yeah, there we go. All right, then there's a sidebar comment, and this can be styled however you want to. It can be put on the side, for example, if you change the style, but right now this is how it is. You have an optional title there, an optional title here for a block quote. Again, you probably don't want this weird style in your normal docs, but this is how it is in the one it comes with. It's pretty. It's cool for like a real news article. I guess that looks pretty cool, right? And then there's a plugin for math. These two require a couple of plugins, but they come, there's a gem for it. Like here in my gem file, there's the Asciidoctor. I just have to include this with the Ruby diagram and plant.ml. Mathematical is only needed for PDF. The math comes standard for if you're just doing an HTML file. So yeah, and I'll show you these later. But there's other ways to do it if you use the JavaScript version. This is just the way I'm doing using the Ruby version. Okay, so back to the index. So here's ASCII math. It also supports LaTeX math. If you use that syntax instead, ASCII math is a little bit easier. I don't know if it's as functional as LaTeX though. I think you could do a little bit more with LaTeX, but anyway. There you go. Plant UML is really cool. It uses GraphViz, and you can. There's a lot of plugins for Markdown. Like if you have static site generators that your Markdown is being used with, they all come with different plugins to do this kind of thing. But yeah, these are SVG graphics because that's what I specified here, so that's cool. Plant UML started out as a modeling language, so that's what this is, right? Object-oriented modeling, but it can do much more. It subsumed a whole bunch of other types of graphics. Like this is a digraph for GraphViz, and I think it uses DOT, which has been around since the 70s, I think, for drawing diagrams. So yeah, if you want to get to know these languages, you can do a lot with just a little bit without having to use a UI for doing your graphs and charts. But if you're into that thing, it supports it, which is cool. One thing I should show, especially with all of these block comments, is that, yeah, editors, right? I'm in VS Code. VS Code has intelligent, what do they call it? IntelliSense. So suppose I wanted to insert a source block, right? I could do that and say, you know, Ruby, no attributes, and then type my code, right? So, you know, if you forget the syntax, your editor will help you in most cases if you have a good editor. So that's a thing, right? Now, another cool thing, conditional coding. So it's if-def. That's the way it's done, kind of like C. And I'm controlling it using attributes here because that way I can demonstrate without running it from the command line. But you can use environment variables that you can pass to your processor, or command line flags that you pass to your processor. So, but here I'm just going to use the attributes. So here we see we have these are block quotes with hard breaks is a way of doing the end of the line without having to put those 2 spaces afterwards. In Asciidoc, you put a plus sign afterwards to be the same as a break character in HTML. But with hard breaks, you don't have to put anything. That whatever follows hard breaks is done line by line. Wait, boy, that took a lot of explaining for something simple. Anyway, so it's in a block quote, and it's also line by line, and it's got a title that's also cited. So there's a lot going on here, right? But the main thing I want to point out here is the conditional coding, where I have if attribute Keats is defined, then show this one. If attribute Keats is not, the endef, not defined, then show this one, which is Shakespeare. So we got Keats, right? Well, let me go back up to the top and let me undefine Keats. I can either comment it out or I can do that. And so now we have Shakespeare as being the conditional code here. So that's really powerful. It comes straight in here. You don't need a static site generator to enable that kind of feature. It's built right into the language, which is nice. And then since I've shown that, this is a bibliography entry with the bibliography at the bottom. You just do this using that plugin, and it'll, I have a bibliography here. The bibliography entries are here. This is using LaTeX one. Anyway. And then finally, and the final thing that I want to say that's really cool, there's a whole bunch more that you can look in the user manual. It has a lot of stuff described. But one thing that really blew my mind when I found it was this: row spanning cells, which you cannot do in any Markdown flavor that I know of. And you can also easily put block markup. Well, I say easily. You can put block markup into your cells, which you normally have to use HTML to do that in Markdown. And of course, you can span columns, but row spanning I think is really cool. Don't know how often that's used, but this block thing is really cool. So yeah, it's a little bit weird. The point 2, the 2 following the dot means row span. The 2 in front of the dot means column span, and then the plus means span, and then the A means this particular cell includes Asciidoc formatting. This one includes just inline formatting, but this includes block formatting, which is what that means. So yeah, and then this is the header, and then these are the last 2 next to this one. So yeah, it's a little weird to format like this. You think, well, I could just do it in HTML. Yeah, but this can be printed in PDF as well. So yeah, in fact, I think I have, it might work. No, let's see. Oh, that's style. Yeah, okay, so let's do something about that. Where do I have that style? Right here. So I'm passing through a style of my class. Yeah, well, so let me just say if def env PDF, I think that's what it is. And if, I think, is it env PDF or I'm not sure. No, if ndef, if not PDF. Yeah, there we go. But I don't know if, yeah, it's not environment. Let me look that up real quick. Okay, it's backend PDF. That's what it is. Save that. Yeah, it still might not work because I don't have my headers processed and stuff. But, oh, okay. All right, so let's see. Let me open PDF. So cool. Yeah, that looks great, right? It's even got a table of contents over here. So let's look at that table. Yeah, I like this a lot better. Oh, the site didn't work. Okay, so that plugin isn't enabled for PDF. Oh, that's because I didn't. All right, let's do that again. Hope it worked. Got a couple of errors here. BibTeX, yeah, but I think it worked. Yeah, okay, so we got the diagrams in there. Got the bibliography, it works. Great, awesome. Got the links working. Cool, so here's a PDF that's looking pretty nice. So yeah, that's great, right? So Asciidoctor is a great implementation of Asciidoc, and Asciidoc does quite a bit, and you can make an ebook out of it too. So I'm going to try using it for a while. Anyway, there you go. This is Asciidoc. So I hope you liked it. All right, bye.